Hi there, welcome back to another tutorial. So if you want to see how I made this gown, then you want to watch this video to the very end. You'll be needing your basic bodice front, the upper part of a basic bodice front. I've gone ahead to impute my side bust dart and my waist dart. And I haven't done this, you'll be imputing your bust circumference, the distance between your bust point to your underbust. If you've been watching my videos, then you should know how to do this by now. Then I haven't done that, I'll be imputing a contour guideline that we'll need for this very particular tutorial. So I'm gonna have to impute 0.4 inches sides of my bust point line that has to go towards the center front of my bodice. And I haven't done this now with a ruler from my neckline, from the shoulder actually, all the way down to my waistline. As you can see me doing in this video, I'm going in with my ruler and I'll be drawing the line from the tip of the shoulder just very close to the neckline all the way down to my waistline. Okay, so having done this now, I'm going to be extending that contour guideline to touch that straight line that I just made now, as you can see me doing in this video. So having done that now, I'll go ahead to extend my bust apart line up to this point, just so it helps me to create the shape of this very particular design. As you can see me doing now, I'm trying to create the design, just sort of a guideline, just so I know what to do. It's actually the design of this particular dress, so I'm going ahead to draw in the design. Just as you're seeing me doing now, trying to get the design of this particular upper bodice of this design. This is actually optional. I mean, you can, if you actually want yours to go whatever design you want. So I'm going ahead now to trace out that very particular side in a fresh pattern piece. Okay, I'm going to be tracing out the whole of this place in a fresh pattern piece, just so I have my pattern in whole, because I'll be needing it for the sake of this dress. I'll also be needing it. So I'm going ahead now to trace out this very design on a fresh pattern piece. Actually, if you don't have a tracing wheel and a tracing paper, you can use this method to trace out whatever you want to do on a fresh pattern paper. So having done that, I've gone ahead to trace out this very particular design on a fresh pattern paper, and I'll be working on that. I've imputed all the dots also, so I'll go ahead to close up the dots and work on this design. I'm just trying to close up the dots just so I can get that feminine bust shape and work on this design. So having done that now, I'm going to close up the dots. Just as you can see me doing in this video, I'm going to close up the dots. I'm gonna head also to close up the side bust dots. I just want to make sure I close up all the dots that are in this very particular pattern piece, just so I get a very nice fitting of this very pattern by the time I start working on it to create that effect on this gown design. I'll go ahead also to cut open this contour guideline that went towards the center front of this very particular piece. And I'll be taping that down using my masking tape. And having done that, this is what you should be having. So I'm going to impute in sort of a guideline to know where to slash my pattern to and not through. So I decided to open up one of the contour guidelines just so the pattern lays flat and helps me to draw a straight line, because actually now it's kind of difficult for me to draw the line, so I had to cut through one of the dots just so the pattern lays flat and I'll be able to draw my line. But I'm going to close back this very particular dot after drawing my line. So I'm gonna have to impute these lines, which are kind of is like a guideline to help me know where to slash. So I'm gonna head after drawing the line. I'm gonna head to close back this very particular dot. So I haven't done that now. I'll be using my scissors to cut to and not through, following the guidelines, not actually following them exactly, but sort of a guideline. Like I should know where to cut from, okay? So I'm cutting to and not through. I'm actually slash and spreading. I'm going to be slashing and spreading this pattern. You're cutting to and not through. Just as you can see me doing in this video. So having done this now, I'll be using a fresh pattern piece, actually a white color of paper, to cut in this very particular pattern. I'm going to be spreading this pattern on a fresh pattern piece just so it differentiates it from the previous pattern, which I said will also be needed, that we used in tracing out this very design. So you want to hold everything down and put it in place just so it doesn't move around and you do not make mistakes. Just as you can see me do now, I'm holding everything down just so it doesn't move around and I do not make mistakes, okay? You want to make sure everything is held in place just so you can get the exact shape and not make mistakes while cutting out the shape. So having done that now, I'm going to be cutting out the shape of this pattern. Just as you can see me doing now, I'm cutting out the shape of this very particular pattern. And I'm going to be folding in this particular part first. The reason why I'm folding it in first before cutting it out is so I know exactly where to cut out, because I want to cut out actually my original pattern. So I have to do this first to get my exact shape of the original pattern before cutting out the fresh pattern piece that I put in place or that I used in adding fullness to this design. So I'm going to be taping this down just so it doesn't move around, and also to enable me get the exact shape. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you get notified whenever I post a new video. Okay, thank you for doing that. So having done that, now this is what we're supposed to have, and I'm going to be opening that up. This is what this pattern should look like. Okay, so I'll be going ahead now with two different kinds of pen, a pen and a marker, to kind of mark lines or make some kind of marks to differentiate where I should fold in and where I should stay out. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm trying to use two different kinds of pen just so I will know where should be in and where should be out. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you watch closely, you will understand what I'm trying to say. Because I'm actually going to be removing this brown paper, so, and everything is going to be white. So I'm using these different pens to differentiate where should be inside and where should be outside. As you're removing the brown paper, which is actually your foundation pattern, you do not want to spoil it or get rid of it now, just so when you get confused you can place it back on this pattern and trace where you've made a mistake and continue from there. You do not want to discard this pattern for now. Okay, so having done that, the place that I dotted are going to be inside, while the place that I have the blue mark, the blue is going to be outside. You can do whatever you want. This is what I did, which I feel I will understand easily. So whatever you feel you're going to understand easily, to know where will be outside and where will be inside, where you're going to fold inside, then you can do that. So having done that, now I'm going to be taping the whole of this down. So I'm going to be getting two pieces of this actual line. Okay, I'm going to be having a two-piece of this. So having done that, remember what you did to the left hand side is what you want to do to the right hand side, because you don't want them to look different. And then you also want to make same designs, same notches on them, just so they look exactly and not different. So having done that, now I'm going to be taping this particular one down and also use the same method and technique to work on the other one. Like I said, do not discard the original foundation pattern, just so if you get confused you can use it and place it back on this pattern and trace back where you've made a mistake. So I'm going to be folding this according to the lines that I made. So I'm going to be folding this up according to the lines that I made, and taping it down with my tape, which is sellotape actually. If you're sewing in your fabric, then you want to go in with some pins and pin this down, and hopefully just run a stitch through it, just so it stays in place. Also, if you're using your fabric, you might want to use two different colors of chalk, or use a notch, whatever you feel you can use that will help you understand where should be folded inside and where should be outside. Then you can just do that. I'm gonna have to do this on both of the sides of this particular pattern, and actually I'm trying to bring out the space to get where it should lap over each other, okay? And you should also be able to get that from your original pattern. From the original pattern, you measure from where that straight line is, the distance between straight line to where you drew it on the other pattern, on the other side of the pattern. I don't know if that makes sense. Actually, mine is on the dot. Mine is on the dot, kind of on the dot on the left hand side, right? The dot on the left hand side, yes. As you can see, where this very particular straight line stops or starts, that is where you should be able to do yours. So I've gone ahead to fold in my darts. If you're sewing on your fabric, you should sew the darts on this very particular pattern. You should sew the darts in, just so that design fits closely to this very pattern, okay? Remember, we've closed up the darts on the other one, so you should also close up the darts on this one. So you have to sew it in. So having done that, now we're going to be placing this particular one on it like so, matching the center fronts to each other. And you want to run this down with a stitch on your sewing machine, or you can use a pin or needle and thread to hold it down. So this is what you should be having when you're done. Going over to the skirt pattern, which is actually very simple, I want to close up this very particular dart from the waist. This very particular dart, I'm going to be closing it up and taking it out. Just as I'm doing so, I'll be marking 1 inch and also the distance to this dart, which is actually that very first line. So from that very 1 inch, I'm going to be tilting my ruler like so and taking it down, okay, thereby eliminating that dart. So having done that, now going with my scissors to cut it out. I'm gonna have to eliminate that dart, so I'm going to be working on this very particular pattern piece. I actually want to change the shape of the dart, so I'll be marking 3 inches and 5 inches downwards. This is also optional, you can go in whatever you want, but I think 3 inches and 5 inches are okay, just so it doesn't look abnormal. So also on the upper part, I'm gonna have to mark 1.5 inches and 3 inches. So I'll be connecting the 3-inch downwards to the 1.5 inch on the waistline, and the 3 inches on the waistline to the 5 inches downwards, just as you can see me doing on the screen, okay? The first one on the waistline to the first one downwards close to the hip line, the second one on the waistline to the second one downwards close to the hip line. So having done this, I'm going to be slashing to and not through this pattern, just so I add fullness to this particular side of this pattern. I'm going to head to impute a fresh pattern paper, and for the sake of uniformity in the spreading, I'm going to be measuring the distance apart whereby I want to spread this particular pattern piece. So I used 2 inches. I think that should be enough. You don't want to go above these 2 inches. If there's anything you want to do, then it should be below 2 inches, but 2 inches is okay. Do not do more than that. 2 inches is okay. So I'm spreading these patterns 2 inches apart from each other. Okay, and having done that, now I'm going to be flipping this pattern open just so I get this exact shape and design, just like we did for the other one, just so I get back the exact shape of my foundation pattern. Okay, so having done this, now I'm going to be taping it down just so I keep it in place and know where to cut from. So having done this, I've arrived at the shape of my foundation pattern, the shape of my original pattern, okay, which is actually what I wanted to do. I'm also going to be taping this down and holding it in place, and I'll go ahead with my scissors to cut according to the shape of my original pattern, just as we did for the upper bodice. Having done that, now I'm going to be opening it up just so the sides lay flat and I'm able to cut it without having any kind of rumples or hitches, something like that. Just exactly what you're seeing me doing now. You want to be careful while doing this so that you do not make mistakes. So I'll be going ahead to make some kind of marks just so I know where it's folded inside and outside. Basically the same technique we used for the upper bodice. So I'll be using my pen now to write close. Whatever I'm doing here is not a standard. You just do what works for you. Whatever it is you're going to do that will help you know where folds inside and where should be seen outside. Something like that. So having done that, now I'm going to be folding over this pattern and using my tape to tape it down. If you're sewing on your fabric, you want to just sew on the line of the waistline, on the tip of the waistline, or you can use a pin to hold it down on the tip of the waistline and not inside, just on the tip of the waistline. Okay, and this is what you should be having when you're done. So I went ahead to join this two pieces together, the skirt and the upper bodice, just so it forms a gown. And you want to flip this right side facing right side and you want to sew it together. Okay, so having done that, now I'm gonna have to attach those very particular pieces together, forming a gown. And having done this also, I'm gonna have to impute kind of a sleeve. So even thanks for watching.